welcome back to the top of the hour. I'm Mark Johnston, your host here for the VID5 conference in our series of VID conferences brought to you by our great friends over at Laurentian Bank Securities. And as it is the top of the hour, we have our next guest ready to go with a full fleshed out presentation so you can get to know inside the company. We welcome Paddy Nicol from Orogen Royalties. How are you, Paddy?
I'm great, Mark. Thanks. And you?
I'm good. Thank you. Just maybe click on your camera so that we can see your face at the same time. That would be fantastic.
Okay.
Almost set there.
Are we good?
No, still not seeing. I know you're there. Oh, I had you there for a second. There we go. Perfect. That's
okay.
Great. Now that you're here, I can step to the side. I wish you a good journey with your presentation. I look forward to all you have to share, and I'll see you on the other side for Q&A.
All right. Well, great. Thanks very much. And good morning, everybody. As Mark mentioned, my name is Paddy Nicol. I'm President and CEO. And good morning from the West Coast out in Vancouver. I'm pleased to give you the presentation on Orogen today. It's a very sort of poignant time in the history of the company. We are about to embark on the first revenue generating royalty that Orogen has and will be cash flowing as of Q1 2022. And so I'm pleased to be able to give the presentation today. There is our forward-looking information. Great. So we'll give a quick overview of the company. And I think one of the big things that people like to talk or like to ask is when they first learn about Orogen, because we talk about organic royalty generation, is what does the organic royalty generator model mean? And to give you a sense of what it is Orogen is actually the product of two predecessor companies, one by the name of Everum Resources, the other by the name of Renaissance Gold. And both of those companies operated as prospect generators for about 10 years. And both companies focused in the Western Cordillera of North America. In the case of Renaissance, they focused in Nevada primarily. And in the case of Everum, it was in northwestern Mexico and also in British Columbia and up into Northwest Territories. And through their efforts, they both just had discoveries on their projects. And through the deals or the structure of the deals that they had, both generated two royalties. So we became a royalty company through the efforts of being a prospect generator. And so the companies decided to merge, and the merger was complete back in August 2020. And so we used that prospect generation component of early stage mineral property investment using our intellectual capital, using a fairly nominal amount of money, putting it into the hands of a partner that forms into an option or a joint venture. And then through the crystallization of that deal, we've generated our royalties. And so that's basically the function of how it works. And so since the merger back in August of 2020, we've been developing our royalty assets and developing projects to this day that continue to bolster our portfolio of royalties. And speaking on our royalties, we have a very high quality royalty asset portfolio that has been all generated from our prospect generation business. They are, again, in premier mining jurisdictions. And when we talk about premier mining jurisdictions, we're talking about places like the Golden Triangle up in northwestern British Columbia, very well known for its copper gold porphyry targets and gold deposits. In Nevada, where everybody, I believe, understands that Nevada is one of the premier gold districts in the world. And then down into northwestern Mexico in the Laramide Belt, where we focused on exploration for copper porphyry deposits and also epithermal deposits. So as I mentioned at the outset, we will be generating revenue as of this month. Our Ermitaño project that we once had and that we now have a royalty on has gone into production. And that is, again, that is a big point in the history for Orogen. And we'll see cash flow come Q1 2022. I think it's also important to point out that because of the way that we conduct our business as a prospect generator, we are debt-free. We have not borrowed money to acquire the royalties that we have. So that's an important point. We've had about $85 million US spent by our project partners or project owners on our royalty portfolio. So this is a very active royalty portfolio, and it's nice to see the development happening as time goes on. We also have a number of, we'll call it joint ventures, and active alliances that take that occur throughout all the areas that we work in. We've done a tremendous amount of work this year in getting projects in partners' hands, and that is basically the early stage pipeline or incubator, if you will, of opportunities that goes down and crystallizes, that goes on to crystallize royalties in the future. Our growth strategy is based on two key facets, and that is obviously the project generation route. We are boots on the ground type of people. We are active in all the areas that we operate today in Western North America. And over time, we've had about $65 million of partner-funded exploration on our projects, developing them. And that, really speaks to the strength of the prospect generator model. And again, through our efforts, we've now got two key royalties, one being the Ermitaño deposit in Mexico and the Silicon project in Nevada. And I'll cover off those in a fair bit of detail shortly here. Again, a number of projects that are under option and a lot of the deals that we've signed recently to bolster or increase the opportunity for exploration success and crystallization of royalties. I'll talk a bit more on deal structures, but really the deal structures that we've employed now have changed a fair bit. We used to have longer term joint venture deals, as was the history of being a prospect generator, but we've narrowed that down to about 5 years now. And so the royalty crystallization and realization is much quicker than it once was. The other side of the growth strategy is more of a selective royalty acquisition route. And I don't think you'll see Orogen going after baskets of royalties. You won't see us competing in bidding contests. It's our cost of capital is still high. And I don't think I know we won't be able to compete with the groups that employ that strategy. Instead, we want to leverage our geological expertise. We want to leverage our business development relationships in trying to find opportunities, maybe at an earlier stage, where we see a strong chance of a royalty being created and a strong chance of a project that might actually become economic and eventually go into production. And so we employ a bit of a different strategy, and I understand that there's other groups that have a geological team, but being prospect generators, we've had a fairly long history of the areas that we work in, and so the pretty strong intimate knowledge with those regions. And I think above all, our goal with selective royalty acquisition is to deploy capital in a very disciplined manner. So it focuses on strong risk-adjusted returns, as opposed to seeing a basket where the probability of one or two royalties might make it is more apparent. So it's a bit of a different approach on acquiring royalties. Okay, so I'll jump straight into the royalty assets that we have, or at least the key ones. And we look at this on a near-term and medium-term sort of approach. And with respect to the near-term, it's actually revenue generating. And I've mentioned this already. It's the Ermitaño deposit. This is a 2% NSR that Orogen holds on a project in Sonora, Mexico. So we're approximately 300 kilometers south of the Arizona Sonora border in Mexico in the Sonoran Desert. Initial production started in November. In fact, the first doré gold-silver bars were poured on November 11th, and I believe they've poured 23 such bars now, so that's very exciting for us. First Majestic is the operator or owner of the deposit. Ermitaño is actually a satellite deposit to a mine called Santa Elena, which has been in production for a number of years now, but First Majestic own both. And First Majestic is a well-known producer, very capable, very responsible operator. So it's we've got a good quality project owner developing this deposit. We expect that initial production is underway as we speak, and so that will ramp up into full-scale production in Q1 of 2022. And the initial mine life on the project is approximately 7 years. And so the exciting part of that is that only 35% of the deposit has been converted to proven and probable reserves. There still remains a fair bit of resources that need to be converted, and that will occur as time goes on. And I think the other thing that's really important to point out here is that we have a 2% NSR on our Ermitaño deposit, which is fantastic. but the project itself is 120 square kilometers in size. And so beyond the 7-year mine life, we see it more in the 10 to 12-year mine life with respect to Ermitaño itself. But then there's a greater opportunity beyond just the Ermitaño deposit to discover additional resources, which could provide revenue for Orogen in the future. Down at the bottom of the screen, you can see there's a medium-term development. This is the Silicon royalty, and this is a project that was generated by the Renaissance Gold team back in, I believe it was 2015 or 16. This is a 1% NSR that we have on the project. The owner, again, like First Majestic, very capable, very responsible operator in AngloGold Ashanti. Very interesting, this project. There has been over 70,000 meters drilled on the project to date. Not one drill hole has been announced. And so it's a bit of a mystery to a lot of people. We're wondering and waiting to see what sort of results will come off. But AngloGold has publicly disclosed that they will be coming out with a resource in 2022. They've also described Silicon in the surrounding area as a potential tier 1 asset. And so when we talk about tier 1 assets with major gold producers, that's typically 500,000 ounces a year over a minimum 10-year mine life. And so we have good, big hopes that this project is going to be something substantial. And our hope is that this royalty becomes multiple times bigger than what Ermitaño is currently paying Orogen. So we're very excited, and there'll be a fairly steady stream of news coming out on Silicon, we hope, over 2022 as well. Okay, I'm going to focus a little bit on Ermitaño for the moment. I'll draw your attention to the table, and you can see that there's 3 categories within the resource that was announced here about a couple weeks back in I think November 21st. This was the PFS was announced by First Majestic, and so you see that there's P&P reserves, and that is the amount, 2.8 million tons with the grades and the gold and the silver that you see there. That is the amount that's currently being used for the mine, and that 2.8 million tons is actually part of the 2.9 million tons of M&I resources. So globally, there is about 8 million tons of ore or of resources that's sitting here, and as time goes on and confidence is increased through drilling, they will start to convert inferred resources to M&I resources, which ultimately form into P&P. So as I mentioned, only 35% of the deposit has been converted to P&P to date. And so we see that the mine life of Ermitaño will be much longer than the 7 years that has been announced by First Majestic. I'll draw your attention to the graphic on the right. This is the claim map of the area, and if this part of Mexico is known as the Rio Sonora Valley, and within that valley, you've got a lot of groups that are exploring the area, but it's very prolific. It was once explored for copper, and in fact, there's the Cumobabi copper mine that sits within this area, owned by Frisco. It's a past producer, and now, more recently, it's been focused on gold. And within this area, you've got the Mercedes mine, which is being operated by Equinox Gold. You've got, obviously, the Santa Elena mine, which is being operated by First Majestic. Las Chispas, which I think a lot of people might know about, is a high-grade silver deposit. It's been a wonderful story, been developed by the Silvercrest people. And now you've got the Ermitaño deposit. And so, there's a lot of competition for ground here. I would say that Orogen was an early entrant into the valley. So in addition to the 2% NSR, where you see that we have on the tan-colored claims, there's also the Cumobabi project, which is in the red-colored claims, which is immediately south of Ermitaño. We hold a 1.5% NSR, and the graphic is clipped here to fit this all in. But Cumobabi itself is about 200 square kilometers. So we have well in excess of 300 square kilometers of royalty interests in this area. And as I mentioned, competition is hot for projects. And so, I think we're very well positioned. First Majestic also owns the Cumobabi. So we see lots of opportunity coming in the years to come. This slide talks a little bit about cash flow, and I think there's a lot of numbers here, so I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this. But I think the key point is that over the next 7 years, Orogen will generate 12.25 million US in revenue. And as I mentioned, there's a lot of the resources that still need to be converted. So within the life of mine plan, there's a recommended annual 5,000 meters of underground infill drilling to increase the resource confidence, and then an additional 15,000 meters of near mine drilling to expand the known zones of mineralization. And Ermitaño, the vein itself, is open to the east, and I think it presents an excellent opportunity for additional resources to be added to the overall deposit. The tables below talk about the life of mine production schedule, and within the first table there, I'll draw your attention to sort of the total ore. You can see there's that 2.8 million tons. You can see sort of the annual production in terms of kilotons. You'll see that for the first few years, there's quite a bit of robust amount of ore being put through the mill. That starts to drop off in 2025. And so that's where you'll see some of the conversions starting to come in to augment the production throughput through the mill. And that, if you move that down into the next table, you can see where the expected revenue starts to come in. Because the mine's only has only commenced in the past couple months, we don't expect to see a ton of revenue for the balance of 2021, probably 300,000 US, but it starts to really ramp up 2022, 2023, and 2024, where you're seeing 2 million US in 2022, close 3.5 2023, and almost 3 in 2024. And so as resources are converted in 2025 and beyond, we expect that those revenue numbers will start to come up in the future. So very exciting for us, and we're expectantly awaiting our first royalty check in Q1 of next year. I'm going to transition up into Nevada now. This is the Silicon Gold project, and so if you're familiar with the geology or some of the major gold districts within Nevada, this Silicon is located in the Walker Lane district. That's the gold district that's kind of along the California-Nevada border. This is at the southern end in what they call the Beatty area. We'll look at the graphic on the right first, and you see there's a series of claims. Those tan-colored claims that you see is ground that is held by AngloGold Ashanti. And within those tan claims, there's a burgundy box. That's where Orogen holds its 1% NSR on Silicon. That represents about 58 square kilometers of ground. Within that box, you can see there's the Central Silicon deposit, or Central Silicon target, we'll call it now, and also Merlin. And between the two, there's probably about 2 kilometers of strike length. You've got other deposits or other targets in the region. You've got the North Bullfrog deposit, and you've got the Linda Strip. So a little bit of history on how this was all put together. The original claims where our royalty interest was originally staked by the Renaissance Group back in I think, again, 2015 or 2016. The other claims was the once held by Corvus Gold, who had developed the North Bullfrog and more recently had discovered the Linda Strip, which is a very narrow piece of land that sits between Core Mining's property, that's the blue ground, and then the claims that are held by Anglo. And so from the public disclosure that we've learned from AngloGold Ashanti, they talk about Central Silicon and the Merlin areas as having significant oxide ore bodies to depth. And as I mentioned earlier, they talk about this in the terms of a tier 1 asset with mineral resource that's estimated to come out sometime in early 2022. Based on the efforts of what Anglo has done within Silicon and based on the efforts of what Corvus has done with respect to their ground, AngloGold acquired or have arranged an agreement to acquire Corvus Gold for $450 million. And I believe that transaction is still underway to be completed, but it's more or less of a done deal. So this area and this camp has been consolidated by Anglo, and we're very excited. I think, from the exploration initiatives or exploration efforts that Corvus has made over the past while, we understand that the type of mineralization is very different from what was historically discovered in the camp. Bullfrog itself, the Bullfrog mine was one of the original mines in the area. It's more on the 1 to 3 million ounce type scale epithermal target. The mineralization they've recently discovered is not like that. It is more what they call, it's broad, it's disseminated, it's highly oxidized, more amenable to heap leach mining, which is a low cost, high margin mining, which is excellent, more like Round Mountain. And within Round Mountain, there was about 20 million ounces. That's also in Nevada. It's a 20 million ounce gold district. I'm not saying that's here, but certainly it's going to be much larger, I believe, than what Bullfrog ever was. So we're very excited by what's happening at Silicon, and we're looking forward to news coming out over the next year. This map here talks about all of our royalties, and it is a smaller royalty portfolio, but it's a very active royalty portfolio. As I mentioned, $80 million. We've already talked about Ermitaño. We've talked about Cumobabi and Silicon up in Nevada. There's also a couple of royalties that are being worked on, La Lola and Camaro, by a junior company named Heliostar, and a private company has the Quale royalty down in Jalisco, Mexico. Up in BC, I think it's important to talk about the Ajax project, which we sold to Kodiak Copper. If you're familiar with the Kodiak story, they discovered the MPD, made a discovery on the MPD project this past year. Teck put $10 million into Kodiak. Kodiak has come along and bought the Ajax project, which sits on the same structural trend immediately south of MPD. So we've stripped a 2% NSR off that project, and we've also retained 1 million shares of Kodiak, which today is close, just over about $1.1 million. The Ball Creek project, I will talk about here in a moment. Okay, quick sort of case study as to why organic royalty generation works so well. We'll talk about Ermitaño. So we bought Ermitaño in 2011 with a package of other projects in the Sonora area. We partnered Ermitaño to Inmet and First Quantum. It was originally explored for copper production, and they spent about $5 million doing so. In 2014, we turned the project around after it was relinquished by FQM to Silvercrest, who were eventually bought out by First Majestic. And so our initial investment into the project to develop it to be prospective for a joint venture was about $100,000. Since then, First Majestic and Silvercrest collectively have spent about $80 million in developing the project. Initial production, as I started, is underway, and the revenue to date indicates at least $12.25 million being generated. So it really shows you the power of the leverage you have of your initial investment, what it can become in terms of a high quality producing royalty. The photo that you see in the page there, this is very recent. In fact, this is Ermitaño. And if you look off to the left side of the photo, you can see there's two little dots there. That's the east and west portal that heads off into the underground to access the Ermitaño vein. That big laydown area in the central part of the screen, you can see those little pillows. Or piles of dirt. It looks like little pillows, rock, I should say. That is ore from the Ermitaño underground, and that ore is being stockpiled on surface. And last I heard, they have about 60,000 tons sitting on surface that grades close to 4 grams per ton gold. And that stockpile is being put on that road that snakes off towards the top of the screen. That's about 4 kilometers away from the Santa Elena mine. So it's very close. The infrastructure is all there, and it's neat to see the progress taking place. So. Quickly chat on Ball Creek. The Ball Creek project is located in the Golden Triangle of northwestern British Columbia. If you're familiar with the Golden Triangle, you can see that there's a history of transactions that has taken place over the past 3 years, all on the sort of the multi-$100 million scale. The most recent one was the big acquisition of Pretium by Newcrest for $2.8 billion. And Ball Creek is right in the heart of it. And this is a project that we've had since 2015. We bought it from a distressed junior. It's been in the hands, in joint venture hands of a copper producer, of a junior. And the challenge with getting this project worked is very large. It takes a lot of focus. It takes a lot of financial dedication. And when you've got competing interests within budgets, it's very hard to give it, I guess, the love, if you will, that Ball Creek deserves. And so instead of putting it into the hands of a joint venture partner again, we've decided to spin out Ball Creek into its own entity. And current status is that we've announced the spin out. We have gone through a fairly complicated tax structure. We've started to bring in expressions of interest for a financing. We expect this deal to be done sometime mid-2022. We are currently trying to put a completely independent management team and an independent board in to run this. Orogen shareholders will receive a piece of SpinCo based on a ratio that we have to determine. Orogen Corporate will receive an equity ownership in the company as well. We'll also clip a small NSR, but the project itself is fantastic. We're very excited by it. It has at least 3 distinct porphyry systems. In fact, there's a new one that was discovered, so actually 4. A new one that sits very close to the Shaft Creek deposit. There's multiple epithermal targets. There's Eskay Creek style VMS targets. And a lot of these targets have been discovered since the 1980s and just simply never followed up. Again, very large land package. It sits right on the Highway 37 that runs up. You can see it running right up through the east side of the project, along with the hydro transmission line that powers Red Chris. So access to infrastructure in this part of the world is not that far away. So we'll have news out on this as it comes, but it's starting to come together nicely. Okay, this slide is really just to give you an idea of the amount of active joint ventures we have. You can see that we've partnered with juniors, small producers, larger producers. But the key point of this slide is to indicate that this is the incubator, a conduit for future royalty creation. In every deal that we do, we are clipping a royalty. And you can see that the term column on the far right-hand side of the screen gives you a sense of the types of royalties that we're trying to achieve. The cash payments and the shares that we receive with respect to the deals are merely trying to cover our costs of the prospect generation business. It's one of our goals is to have our prospect generation business support itself, so we're not taking royalty revenue and dumping it just back into exploration. That royalty revenue is being retained for other transactions and future acquisitions of royalties. So we're trying to sort of be going from a prospect generator to a royalty company. It's that transition of trying to become self-sustainable. And this is sort of one of the goals that we have, is that the prospect generation business supports itself. I won't spend a lot of time here. This is the royalty portfolio. It's very similar to the map that we showed you earlier. But again, I think the key point here to make is that the royalty portfolio is not stagnant. It is very active. There's multiple drilling programs, there's development programs, and we estimate about $85 million US was expended by partners or project owners on the royalty portfolio in 2021. Quickly on management. For those who don't know me, I've been in the mineral exploration business for 25 years. Initially focused, single asset focused companies. I managed a number of them over the years, mostly in South Central British Columbia, porphyry targets, gold projects, VMS targets in Alaska, and was managing a bunch of them at the same time. And when the financial crisis came along in 2008, I got some perspective on trying to manage too many things at once, and was presented with the opportunity in 2009 to start what was called Evrim Resources at the time. It's a prospect generator. And so it's been my sole focus since then. It remains my sole focus to this day. And it allows me to really focus on growing the business that was Evrim and now Orogen. Mark Tran is my CFO. Mark's been involved in a lot of high-profile companies and projects over the years. I think most notably, Mark was involved with eCobalt, which was a fairly involved cobalt project in Idaho. Had a lot of complications, had a fairly large team as well. And so he, well-versed in M&A, well-versed in management of groups. And so he's been a vital asset. He joined us in December of 2020. So he's been with us for about a year. And Marco Locascio, who joined us a few months back. For those that don't know Marco, he was a fund manager and an analyst with Equinox Fund out of New York. So he has excellent relationships within the banking community. and very well versed in M&A. And so Marco brings a lot of perspective on sort of dealing with external relations and also strategic guidance within our company. At the board level, Tim and Bob are former Renaissance directors who joined as a result of the merger, both very well versed in exploration in Nevada and bring a lot to bear from a technical perspective and engineering perspective. Tim is a mining engineer, Bob is a geologist, so they certainly lend some good perspective in Nevada. Roland was one of the co-founders of Altius Minerals, who's our largest shareholder. And Roland has also run royalty companies, Callanan Royalties, you might recall that, for a number of years. So well-versed in the royalty business and also a very technical and well-respected geologist as well. Justin's our recent acquisition at the board level, or I shouldn't say acquisition, but addition at the board level. Justin is the former VP of legal for Rio Tinto. He was part of the team that led the divestiture of about $250 million worth of royalties out of Rio Tinto. He was also on the legal defense team for a lot of the M&A work that has gone on within Rio for the past decade. So Justin brings a lot of sort of the legal and M&A experience that I think is important within a royalty company today. Okay, we went one too fast there. Share structure. Final slide here. I'll draw your attention to the left side of the screen. We have a market cap of around 95 million today. We have just over 9.2 million in the bank. That's as of our September financials. Recent share price, we're bouncing between sort of the 50 to 54 cent range. Current shares outstanding, 178 million. The graphic on the right gives you a sort of a breakdown of our shareholders. Altius Minerals, who is, if you know Altius, they're a royalty company themselves. They have a 15% equity stake. They have purchased their shares through private placements, and they also buy in the open market. And you can see the activity there if you check them on SEDI, because they are insiders. Adrian Day Asset Management has been, along with Sprott, they've been long supporters of the company from its days as a prospect generator to where it is at Orogen. So we have a very strong base of good, solid shareholders. We are still largely a retail-held company, and that speaks to the roots of being a prospect generator. But I think as time goes on, you'll see that structure transition a bit into institutional ownership as well, as the company starts to grow and takes on greater value. And that is our presentation. Thanks very much, and welcome any questions you might have.
Thank you very much, Paddy. A well thought out and fleshed out presentation. I appreciate the full tour. And of course, our audience has been quite engaged and active. Our Q&A column is quite busy. So we'll just jump right in here and get to the questions. First of all, Jack offers, of your outstanding earn-in agreements with counterparties, which do you believe, Paddy, might have the best potential to get to the finish line to add a valuable royalty interest?
Well, there's the prospects. When we talk about our projects, they are fairly early stage going into the hands of partners. So at the outset, you kind of think that every project has an equal chance. But recently, from the work that we've seen, there's a couple that I really like. In the royalty and the joint venture portfolio that we have, I really like the work that the Headwater team has done on our Spring Peak project. They made a recent announcement. It's a new discovery on a project in Nevada. It's an epithermal target. So we're excited by that, and we're excited that they're going to bring up. I think for 2022 they'll bring a new budget in, and we'll see more drilling there. We had 5 drilling programs on our projects this year, so there was lots of activity. I like what was going on at Maggie Creek. That was work that was done earlier in the year. U.S. Gold met their commitment. This is a project that sits right down the gun sites of gold quarries, so you're definitely in the right part of the world. But they had 2 very interesting drill holes, and we are hopeful that they'll be exploring there next year. On the royalty side, I really like the Ajax project. It's existing royalty for sure, but just by the work that the Kodiak people have done, the Ajax is on the same structural trend as MPD in the gate zone. It has the same geophysical characteristics. It has the similar geochemical signatures at surface. And so it's a project that acts as a project that only saw shallow drilling. And the strategy that Kodiak's employed recently is more of a deep type of drilling, and they're getting great success. So I'm very excited. The fact to have a 2% NSR on a copper porphyry target is fantastic.
That's great, Paddy. Thank you for that. Next question comes in. Can you please comment on how competitive the royalty space is currently and how it affects your ability to secure royalties?
It's highly competitive. I've never seen a segment of the exploration or mining market where it's been this competitive ever. And I think the challenge with going out and buying the baskets of royalties that has been historically the case for a lot of companies recently is for Orogen, our cost of capital is still quite a bit higher. And I don't think it's the best use of our money. You're paying full price plus for royalties that exist, and you're seeing that some of the bigger groups are stepping down and buying royalties that with higher risk attached to it. I think where our differentiation comes in is I'll speak again back to the organic royalty generation side of the business, where there's no other groups maybe outside of EMX that's actually doing what we're doing. And the type of deals that we are employing I think is quite unique. And so our investment into these projects is low. Granted, it's probably longer term, but we believe that the royalties that we create are based on good geology and good work done by partners. And if they get crystallized, it's because the project has made it in some way. And so, I think through our efforts, we get a higher quality royalty. And, our investment into these is nominally low compared to what you would pay if you paid for a full scale royalty at this stage.
Okay. Thank you, Paddy. Let's continue with the competitive. Getting a bit of feedback there. Can you tell me, are there any plans for merger and acquisition to increase the competitive situation if you have a more liquid stock for financing?
Yeah, I think that there's always the opportunity for M&A. I don't think that we're going to hang our hat on it. If there's an opportunity that comes Orogen's way, then we'll certainly address it and evaluate it, and we'll do what's in the best interest of shareholders. And at this stage, we continue focused on growth of the company. I think we need to see a fair bit of information come still on silicon. I think one of the challenges that Orogen's had over the past year is that we've not been able to talk about our royalties in a manner where you can ascribe economic value and engineering rigor and things like that to the deposits. It's only in the past month where we've been able to actually talk about Ermitaño in any great economic detail, and you're seeing the fruits of those efforts now starting to come to market. I think you'll see something similar come when silicon starts to take shape over time, as news flow starts to come and confidence of the deposit starts to increase. So we won't say, never, that's not what we're going to do, but I think we need to create some value here first to give us a bit of strength and leverage in the market before we transact on anything at an M&A level.
That's great, Paddy. Thank you for that. Just checking a setting on this side. Do you have any specific jurisdictions, that you like for royalty investment at this time?
Sorry, can you repeat the question, please?
Yes. Do you have any specific jurisdictions that you like for royalty investment at this time?
Depending where you go, Mexico, I believe, presents an excellent opportunity. It's a little bit off the beaten path. If you go into Nevada and even in Canada, everybody understands the royalty game very, very well, especially the vendors of projects and landholders. And so you're not only competing with the royalty companies that are out there, you're competing with small mom and pop type prospectors. And so it's a very competitive environment. In Mexico, it's less understood, and the market, I think, for royalties isn't as mature. And so given our level of expertise, I think there's greater opportunity in Mexico, despite the fact we are very present in these other regions, because we still see good opportunity. And being boots on the ground type people, we have, I would say, a bit more intimate knowledge with the areas that we work in. So we can see early stage opportunities starting to materialize, I think, ahead of other groups. But I do like Mexico for that royalty angle.
Perfect. That's great. Thank you very much. We're just getting a bit of an echo feedback here, Paddy, so our backroom technicians are just dealing with that moment. That's perfect. Thank you very much. Next question from Eric, actually. We see from the October 26th press release, Paddy, the nomination of Mr. Marco de la Casio, VP Corporate Development. Certainly an experienced gentleman. That must be great insight coming into the company.
Yes. Sorry, I just heard.
There you go.
Can you hear me now?
We're good to go.
Yeah, great. So, sorry. Yeah, Marco is fantastic. I've met Marco, I think 10 years ago. His fund was actually a shareholder of Evrim, and I got to know him in that manner. And we've always been able to talk to each other on and off over the past 10 years. And there was a point at which Marco decided to have a change of scenery and try this side of the market. And he worked fairly extensively on a small company, diamond company, in for the past few years. And then we got to talking about what it might look like if he came and joined us, and obviously bringing the experience that he has from how investors see the companies, from not only marketing, structure, but corporate governance and things like that. Marco's brought a tremendous amount of that in the short time that he has been with the company. And beyond that, his analytical skills at the sort of the corporate development level, he's able to quickly assess opportunities as they come, and he's been put in place to help try to bring some of the royalty opportunities in as well. And just the fact that he's looked at so many projects and so many deals and royalties over the years, I mean, it's kind of second nature for him to be doing what he's doing. And so it's been a big shot in the arm for our ability to assess opportunities all over the place.
Oh, that's great, Paddy. And one of the things I love in this session for our VID conference series is when a member of the investing audience picks up a question like that and offers it directly to the source. So that's always great to see. Let's move forward. I want to circle back to one of your topics early in the presentation. How do you see the future development, Paddy, of the Ermitaño property?
Well, we certainly see the next few years is going to be very robust in terms of revenue generation. I think from 2025 onward, we'll be looking to see the conversion of ore that sits in an inferred category into M&I resources, which will ultimately form into proven and probable reserves. And there's a mine infrastructure there that's recently been upgraded by First Majestic. They've put in a new grinding circuit. They've moved power from diesel generation to LNG. And so I think that you're going to see the area actually more like a 15-year type of scenario than the 7-year scenario that they presently have. The focus for First Majestic was to get some of the Ermitaño deposit to a status that it could go into production now. And so they weren't focused on getting the global resource converted to P&P right away. It was just a portion of that. And as time goes on, they'll start to convert. But I do think, though, that they will have more resources based on some of their disclosure they've had in other conferences. They've made a new discovery, and it is on the Ermitaño ground. And so we don't know how big it is and what it is, but I know their CEO talked about it and seemed pretty bullish on it. So I think we should be pretty excited about it too. So I see that there is a fairly long-lived asset here that will pay us long into the future.
Fantastic. Paddy, at this point in the hour, I always like to turn the floor to an open space for you. If we've missed anything else that's come to mind to share with our audience as we close out our session today.
No, I think probably the only thing, Mark, is that we haven't been able to chat a ton about sort of the the flow of JV activity that's taking place, and we expect to see that continue on into the new year. We did 11 deals over 2021, which it was a tremendous amount of transactions to get projects in partners' hands, and I think we managed our property portfolio very well. That should result in a high degree of news flow over 2022. We still have deals to do. We have 4 more coming, so I expect to see our active JV portfolio sort of in the 13, 14, 15 range. And yeah, it generated about $3.5 million worth of exploration work by our partners. So we expect a fair bit of news coming off that. We expect a fair bit of news as the royalties develop. And so we're always excited to bring that type of information to the market. So we're set up in a nice spot, and we're very excited to see the company now in a revenue generation mode.
Fantastic, Paddy. I want to say thank you for a fantastic tour through the company and great engagement with our audience as well from around the world.
Thanks very much.
All the best.
Thanks much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. And for the rest of our folks here, of course, at the top of the hour, we have Azimut Exploration coming in as our next featured company. But do take the time, please, to fill out the survey as we wrap up this presentation, and we'll see you at the top of the hour. All the best for now.